Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. There's been talk of whether Dean Henderson should be Manchester United's #1 goalkeeper next season. Should that be the case, or should David De Gea be given more time to turn around his fortunes? To talk about this and more, I'm joined by Jamie Jackson. He's the Manchester football correspondent for The Guardian and The Observer. If you are new to our channel, please subscribe to us, follow us on social media, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Well, Jamie, thanks for joining us today, mate. Just hit me with the question that United fans have been speaking about last few days. Should Dean Henderson be United's #1 next season?
No, it isn't a short answer because, well, for a few reasons. I think the main one is being Manchester United keeper is not the same as being Sheffield United keeper, even Chelsea or Spurs goalkeeper. There's unbelievable amounts of pressure. When you go and sort of be the keeper there. I actually remember doing a piece about De Gea when he joined, or just after he joined, and he got dropped by Ferguson. He put Anders Lindegaard in. And I remember then going back through keepers, other keepers who at the time, had failed. It looked like De Gea might fail, and obviously he didn't. And, the pattern was kind of not being able to deal with the pressure. I mean, Henderson, he still has made the odd mistake at Sheffield United, but, like goalkeepers do, like human beings do. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is it's magnified so much at Manchester United for the right reasons and for the wrong reasons. Now, De Gea, in this sort of very bad post-Ferguson era of United, the sort of 6-7 years, which since he left, he's been Player of the Year 3 or 4 times, I think it has been. Basically a record for a player, which is, that's a sign of kind of, in a way, it's a bad sign. If your goalkeeper's your player of the season, it's a bad sign, right? Because what's it saying? It's saying that you're not scoring many goals, there's not much creative play going on or players to praise, and your keeper's having to keep you in games and save you points. I don't think he is the force he was, David De Gea. You go back to the end of last season, basically after the sort of international break of March. I think they only won once in the league, maybe it was twice. In and around that period until the end of the season, De Gea made loads of mistakes. There's a bit, actually, I've got a biography of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer coming out. There's a bit obviously chronicling that period. I remember going back through the mistakes, stroke goals and points he cost the team, De Gea, in this passage of the sequence of games, and it was a lot. It was a lot of mistakes, it was a lot of points. He kept on doing it, but then he sort of came out of it a bit, and then this season, until this mistake you're talking about, in the last game but one, I think they only conceded 2 in 12 games, something like that. But what was interesting when we asked him about this last week, Solskjaer, his defence of De Gea was, well, he doesn't make the same kind of mistakes. He's not repeating the same kind of error. I don't know if you remember, but Joe Hart, it turned out he had a problem with sort of shots down to low to his left. Right. And that became a real weakness that people knew about, and I don't know if exploited on purposely, but became almost a fact. It was true. And Solskjaer sort of tried to say basically De Gea's not making the same sort of mistakes. But, I could think of those in that passage I talked about, the Barcelona game at Old Trafford, he let in or maybe it was the away game, but he let in a long shot. He keeps on letting in these sort of longish shots that sort of square away from him. That was similar to the goal at Spurs that he let in, where it was 20 yards. It's a great run by the player, but really it was hit straight at him. I'm sorry, but that's bread and butter. So that's all this is why he gets the criticism, and this is why his place is under threat, I think, a little bit. But Solskjaer doesn't really have. He does have a viable alternative. And I don't think it's Henderson, it's Romero. But the issue he's got is the last thing he needs now, while he's trying to finish this season, it looks like they've got a good rebuilding thing going on. I was at the game yesterday, they were excellent. Sheffield United weren't up to much, but, that's because Manchester United smothered them. The last thing he needs now is to be messing around with a keeper. And if that then backfires, so the keeper he brings in, whether it be Henderson, or Romero, doesn't, also has some errors, it's going to make him look very bad. I just don't think you can take the chance. But if you said to me, look, you could have, or if you said to him, you could have Neuer tomorrow, or Edison, yeah? Or, the guy at Liverpool whose name escapes me. Sorry, who is actually the Brazil #1. I think you probably take them. De Gea also signed a very lucrative new contract kind of last September, I think it was. That rumbled on for a bit. Now, you know, part of that is always with these sort of players who are worth a lot, to protect the assets, protect the value of De Gea. Because, you know, if you go into a final year of a contract, we all know his price comes down, blah, 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 blah. But I do think there's an element where he probably needs to be dropped. Maybe that's what he needs to do. Not forever, not to bring in a Henderson forever, you know, but I think he probably needs to be dropped. Just to maybe give him a job, because what I'm saying about the contract things, I just wonder whether, even if it's just subconsciously, so he no, he's not consciously doing this, but subconsciously he's just slacking off a little bit because he is the number one. You know, he's being paid all this money. I can't remember exactly how much it is, but it's the thick end of 250, I think, basic. You know, it's a lot of money for a goalkeeper, but, you know, he's supposedly worth it. If he got dropped, and actually could see there's some jeopardy with regard to his place, because it's difficult to know why he's letting in these kind of, let's say, regulation, you know, saves he should be making, like the one at Spurs. And I just wonder whether it's because his concentration isn't as keen as it should be, because maybe he's not feeling he's being pushed enough. But, you know, the Henderson thing is interesting. It could work, but I just think that he's got other issues he has to solve, Solskjaer. And, you know, you might say to me quite rightly, well, isn't one of the issues becoming De Gea? I think it is an issue, but I don't think it's not become yet a massive problem. It was towards the end of last season, but to be honest with you, the end of last season, they were all useless. That team was awful. I mean, I can't remember what scored, but they lost to Cardiff, who were already down in the final game of the season, you know, in front of their own fans. I think I did that game, and it was just, you know, it was pretty terrible. So I just wonder now whether he's thinking, it'll be a concern. They'll be discussing it all the time. He'll be discussing that behind the scenes, but he can't come out, Solskjaer, and say, yeah, this is a concern. We're worried about him. We're discussing this. But it will be going on because he is a very thorough, meticulous manager. Where it goes from here will be interesting. What have we got left? 7 games left, is it, of the league season? They've got the Europa League. They've got an FA Cup game on Saturday at Norwich. You know, he lets in a couple more. I mean, he didn't. I don't think he had a shot yesterday at Old Trafford. I don't think Sheffield United, maybe towards the end, there might have been the odd one I've forgotten, but it wasn't like he, you know, you couldn't look at that and say, oh yeah, you know, he's responded to the Spurs, the Spurs howler with a series of saves, and, you know, so we're yet to see what's going to happen here, but he's a little bit concerning, I'd say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned the contracts there. What do you think has sort of mainly caused his mistakes? Like, there's been the contract sort of protected saga. There's been the goalkeeping coach issues. You know, because he's led, I think it's 7 errors since the start of last season that have led to a goal, which I think is the most among goalkeepers.
Wow, yeah, okay, well,
quite high. I mean, it's stems since Spain's sort of difficult World Cup in 2018, and De Gea was one of those affected. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, there you go. You've got that example. He let one in from Ronaldo, right? Didn't he? In one game, for example, when Ronaldo got a hat-trick against him. So, I mean, this is an interesting question. What is it? Is it that he's always been a little bit prone, as he was towards the start of his career, as I mentioned, when we sort of had a look at this and he got dropped, and then he's had a period where, you know, it's clicked, but it's difficult to know exactly why. I do think there's an element of a lack of serious competition. I mean, again, on the one hand, Solskjaer says, you know, he's got 2 great goalkeepers there in De Gea and Romero, but then he says, oh, I always say I've got the best number 2 in the world, Romero. So what is that saying to both those players?
Yeah.
That you know, this is after the Spurs howler. That's saying Romero is the number 2. You know, now he might sit here and say, well, it's more nuanced than that. I just mean because he's not in the team all the time. At the moment, he is the number 2, and what a number 2 he is. But in the same conversation, this is, you know, the press conference last Friday that I mentioned, or whenever it was, I'll lose track of days, but maybe it was Monday. But, you know, he then says that De Gea is the best goalkeeper in the world. I mean, to a certain extent, this is where managers have it difficult, because he can't really say anything else if he wants, you know, the players' confidence to not be sapped and it affect the team. He's got to think the team's got to say something like that. But I just think if he was to drop him, and it might not be the time. I mean, you know, that was the first game back after 3.5 months off. You know, but I think if there was an actual real prospect of being dropped, like Ferguson did, basically. Ferguson dropped him. You know, he dropped him. I can't remember how many games it was. It was around about the Christmas period of that season. I think it was the last season they won the league, actually, 12-13. So he'd been there a couple of years. and he put Lindegaard in for about 10 or 11 games, maybe a little bit more, all the way up to just before Christmas. There was a game actually at Reading where they won 4-3. United did. I did this game. I went down there, and it was real pell-mell, helter-skelter. It was ridiculous. I think all 7 goals were scored in about 25 minutes, and basically after that, De Gea got back in, and that was the end of Lindegaard really as a competitor. But what I'm saying is Ferguson did that. Now I'm not, I just wonder whether Solskjaer, when time moves on a bit and Pogba's really motoring and Fernandes is still, when the team's more solid, maybe then he can afford to drop him because the team itself isn't as fragile as it has been, and I still think it can be on occasion. Because after all, De Gea is basically, he's not the captain, but he's one of the captains. I'm not sure, he might be the player who's been there the longest now, along with sort of Jones and Smalling, who aren't really in the side. I mean, Smalling's on loan. So, there's all sorts of reasons why it's difficult for him to drop him at the moment. But I just think there may come a time when he has to. And maybe that will be... It's interesting to say about the goalkeeping coach. Again, the name escapes me, but he did leave his guy. He's left the club now. And there's a guy called Richard Hartis who's worked with Solskjaer. I think he worked with him in Norway, at Cardiff. But he was Cardiff manager. He was at the FA, Richard Hartis. And he's come in as Solskjaer's guy. And you wonder whether there was anything in that, because obviously when he was getting Player of the Season awards, Club Player of the Season awards to Gea, this is when he had his guy there as the coach. So just wonder if there's anything in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Roy Keane, he famously said a few words about De Gea at half-time of the Spurs. Amongst other phrases, he said he'd be swinging punches in the dressing room, and he said De Gea is the most overrated goalkeeper. I mean, it's quite entertaining, but what were your thoughts on what Keane said?
Well, the thing about Keane, right, I always think is just because he's got a sort of, let's say, not scared to voice opinion, doesn't mean to say, sometimes maybe he can suffer because that Roy Keane persona thing, doesn't mean to say what he's actually saying isn't valid as well. So do you remember there was a game, I think England were playing Poland in Poland. I think it might have got rained off on the first night. It was like a thunder, proper storm. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that was when Keane basically said about Hart, the same thing. And he was proved right about Hart. Now, I don't think Hart is as good a keeper as De Gea is or has been or ever will be. But what I'm saying is there's an example of Keane, giving a strong opinion. And so he was captain of Manchester United. He knows what a good keeper is. He knows what a good footballer is. He knows how dressing rooms work. Where he suffers a little bit from is his style of delivery. If he's saying that in maybe a more relaxed way, but in a more or at least forensic sounding way, then the Roy Keane has a rant thing wouldn't be there. So what I'm saying is, I don't think he's not taken seriously his opinion, but I think sometimes people can go, it's just Roy Keane having another go at someone else, and then it becomes a bit of like white noise to people. So I think there's something in it. I mean, I think if he's saying that, he played with Schmeichel. Schmeichel's arguably their greatest ever keeper. I mean, he probably is actually. I mean, I don't think Van der Sar's quite in that bracket. So he knows what a good keeper should be. And one thing that Roy Keane always says about himself as well is, when I get this praise for being Roy Keane, I'm just doing my job. And I think that's what he thinks about De Gea. So, like any player, but we're talking about De Gea here. Just do your job. Stop that shot that's coming straight at you. Effectively, there might be a bit of dip on it, but you're a highly paid sort of Manchester United goalkeeper. Save it. So I don't advocate, as I'm sure you don't, or anyone going around punching people. That might just be a figure of speech. But the general sort of criticism, I've got a little bit of time for, because the facts are there. Because he has tended to, he has done it before. Make all these mistakes. So I was interested when he said that about overrated, because I think that's what he said about Joe Hart at that time. It was the same sort of phrase. The thing about De Gea which concerns me is he's always been considered a heck of a shot stopper, but maybe not the best aerially. If you notice about him, it's also how the game's played now, but he's not known for having a presence in the air. He comes for loads of balls and clears them that way. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is so the shot stopping thing was always his thing, but then he can't stop he can't stop that shot from Bergwijn the other night. That's a concern, I'd say. And I'll tell you why else it's a concern. Last season, it cost them when they were trying to get Champions League places, and he ended up completely falling apart. And he was culpable to some points. And they're kind of in the same boat now. They're going for this sort of Champions League berth, which really is basic minimum if you're at Manchester United to qualify in the top 4. So it will be a concern for Solskjaer, but it's very tricky to get these managers, whether it's Solskjaer or Guardiola, to actually, why would you effectively, not publicly criticise, but publicly admit there's a concern about one of your star players if you think it's going to harm the team? That is a valid reason to protect a player, even if some fans, it can frustrate. So why doesn't he just call it out? Because he's not really just thinking about that player. He's thinking about the team, stroke club's prospects, and therefore the fans. So I do understand it, but I would be staggered if they're not looking at this thinking, "Oh, is this going to happen again? What happened towards the end of last season?"
Yeah, I'm sure, as you say, I'm sure they're thinking about it. Well, just finally, Jamie, amongst other goalkeepers like Van der Sar and Schmeichel, as you say, they've had likes of Tim Howard, Ben Foster, who after they left United had good Premier League careers.
Yes,
weren't necessarily good Man United goalkeepers. Would Dean Henderson? Is there a fear he may fall into that category?
Yeah, I mean, this relates to the sort of point we discussed maybe at the start of this conversation. It's difficult to be a Manchester United goalkeeper because for the same reason why it's difficult to be a Manchester United striker or defender. It's just magnified 20, 30, 40-fold. I'm lucky enough to go up to follow them when they do summer tours, in pre-season. I've been, you name it, I've kind of been to parts of the world with them. And they are massive. They're massive. It is a little, there is, you can see, kind of the prestige, the glamour, the profile. But with that comes with, you have to perform. So Dean Anderson, no one will ever know unless he gets a go. But the problem with it's a little bit chicken and egg. It's almost like being a Manchester United goalkeeper. It's almost like when someone gets to play for England now, they almost, if they have a bad game, it's almost like they're written off. And I'm not saying that would happen with Dean Henderson, but what I'm saying is it's very, very, very difficult to say to a Manchester United goalkeeper, look, you've got the next 10 games. I mean, you can, John. You've got the next 10 games, whatever happens. That's almost what you've got to say. Therefore, don't worry, you're going to be judged over a period of time. No one knows. I mean, Ben Foster's another one who had to leave. Yeah, Tim Howard. I mean, Tim Howard for a while looked like he was going to be the real deal, but he just couldn't quite pull it off. And as you say, he was good at Everton. Ben Foster's still sort of mainstay now. He's in the Premier League. So who knows with Dean Henderson? It would be nice. I'm trying to think the last, not that it really matters, but the last sort of homegrown goalkeeper we've had there. I mean, one of the reasons why it's difficult because there's only one position, obviously, as goalkeeper. So it's, chances are obviously limited that way. But also it is because of what we're talking about. Now, the fact that he's gone to Sheffield United and done so well, that's great. But what you need is you need to throw him in kind of what I'd call the deep end and say, right, it's the chicken egg thing. It's a bit like throwing a young player into, say, Manchester City's team at the moment. This is what Guardiola always says, or what the subtext is. You can't really do it because every game is crucial because we're trying to win the Champions League and win the Premier League yet again and win all domestic honours or whatever it is they've just done. And you can't take chances with that. That's a little bit like with United because of the scrutiny, because of the position. So I'm not saying Henderson can't do it, but I just think, just reading between the lines what Solskjaer's been saying, I would be staggered if he isn't on loan again, probably at Sheffield United next season, and he comes back to Manchester United, as the number one. I just don't see that. They might say to him, look, you can come here. You'll have a real good chance if David De Gea slips up to come in. But will he settle for that, Dean Henderson? Because he might think, well, wait a minute, I could be getting in the England side here if I'm playing regular football again at Sheffield United, wherever it might be. Whereas I could come back to United, sit on the bench, and De Gea has another storming season, and I've kind of gone, if not backwards, sideways. So it's tricky. Excuse me. But to a certain extent, what we're describing there is kind of professional sport at the very highest level. You have to have a little bit of luck, to get a chance. And when the chance comes, you have to take it. And so, as I said, I'll be staggered if he's at United next season, unless he's willing to accept being number 2 to De Gea, certainly as the season starts. So unless De Gea chucks in 10 in the next 6, 7, 8 games, and has a complete meltdown, I just don't see Henderson becoming the de facto number 1 for next season.
All right, well, that's great. Well, thanks so much, Jamie, for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Well, thanks for watching in, guys. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe to us and follow us on social media and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.